30%, the same rating as then Senator Barack Obama. If you send me to Congress, I'll not only propose the constitutional balance of budget amendment, sign on to it as a co-sponsor, but also fight to ensure that that budget is not just balanced, but we're reducing the size and scope of government every year. Thank you.
Bob, can I get some clarification? Sure. What was being said, is it sure that I'm the only candidate on stage who believes that the right to life issue is the most important issue facing our nation today? Is that correct, Bob?
You're the only one that said it.
That's correct. Thank
you. I think that's fair. You're the only one who said it.
Mr. Sadler, if you need a rebuttal here, that would be okay for you to take if you'd like to at this point.
Yeah, I've voted against a balanced budget that would require draconian tax increases. The ones that were offered when I was there were like pay-go. When you hear the word pay-go, think that means you get to keep paying so they can go on spending. What pay-go means is any increase in spending must be offset elsewhere in the budget by a reduction in spending or an increase in taxes in order to balance the budget. Now, the Mike Pence amendment would limit federal spending to 20% of the GDP. I can support that entirely because it limits spending. It doesn't leave you the option to balance the budget by increasing taxes. Our spending needs to be lower. Our government doesn't make too little, it spends too much. So I support that.
Mr. Sadler, you have the next question. Are you ready?
Sure.
Some people would say that career politicians are what is wrong with our government. This particular phrase is plastered all over the internet. Quote, the founding fathers envisioned citizen legislators, serve your terms, then go home and back to work. Do you support term limits? And would you sponsor or co-sponsor a bill for term limits?
I do, and I will.
Yeah.
But I want to share something with you. I shared with the Tea Party people this afternoon. Some of you have heard that before. Just bear with me. But President George Washington voluntarily gave up power 2 times. One time at the close of the Revolutionary War when he turned his sword into the Continental Congress and said, like Cincinnatus, he was going home to sit under his fig and vine. The second time was after his second term as president, when they said you need to seek a 3rd term. And he said no. No president should serve more than 2 terms. From that point on, every 2-term president in the United States voluntarily gave up power until our 32nd president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He refused to leave office after 2 terms. And he scared his own party so bad that those of you that have the little Constitution books pass out, if you look in the back, you find out that the amendment was passed in 1951 to prevent any president from serving more than 2 terms. Part of the problem in America today is people that serve in the Congress will not voluntarily give up power. They leave feet first on a gurney. I assure you, I intend to walk out. Now, the term limits would be entirely arbitrary. You just have to pick a number. For me, 5 terms in the House, that's 10 years. 2 terms in the Senate, that's 12 years. That's adequate. It's time to go home and live under the laws you passed. So we can debate about what it ought to be. Maybe it ought to be something different than that. I certainly would entertain sitting down with somebody to talk about it. But we do need term limits. But folks, that is a long-term thing. And I don't think you'll ever get Congress to vote themselves out of office. I think what we're going to have to do is like that amendment in 1951. Harry Truman could have run for another term if he chose to, because it said it was effective on anyone elected after the date of passage. So I think that's the way you'll have to handle the one in Congress. John Dingell has been there 53 years, if memory serves me right, in the House. Can you believe that? 53 years. I don't even know how long Senator Byrd's been there, 46 years or something. You know, there's one other thing I'd like to see is no building, no road, no taxpayer-funded structure be named after a member of Congress while they're in Congress. As a taxpayer, I object to buying yard signs that say Robert Byrd Airport, Robert Byrd Highway. Somebody, I would prefer they be dead, but at least let them leave office first.
Mr. Warren?
Well, absolutely. Term limits are a necessity. Now, from my side, not a problem because I'm going to be out until like 65 and I'm out. I plan on retiring. I want to enjoy my retirement. We have to look at the politicians we've got in there. We have to get rid of them. Because the career politicians who are in there right now have gotten themselves so entrenched in what they're doing that they think we owe them the job. So that's why we have to have term limits. You know, currently you have term limits. I want you to exercise those come November. And that is vote Barron Hill out of office. I will do everything I can to take that man and put him in the unemployment file.
Mr. Young. Yes, I support term limits. I would be happy to join those who want to lead that movement. I would absolutely speak very forcefully for term limits, what our founding fathers called rotation in office. They debated this at some length. We look at the state legislatures that many of them came from, there actually were term limits, and we found that the citizen legislator model served many of these states very well. I think that our members of Congress should go, serve us, create laws, and then return home to live under the very laws they create. Look, I could go with any combination of terms, and I too would be open to reasoned conversation and debate about what those terms should be. I've heard the 5 in the House, 2 in the Senate model as well. The bottom line is we need some turnover in our House of Representatives. We have too many stale politicians without any new ideas in Washington. We've got a very deep bench in this country. 310 million people. Public-spirited people. It's a very educated populace. There are a number of people in this room that I think would make fine members of Congress. So it's time we restore that ethic of this citizen legislator. We need... I can tell you personally, I certainly don't aspire to go to Washington for an extended period. The people that do, I think, have an inflated view of the importance of government in our lives and what government ought to be accomplishing. I think that the less that government does at the federal level is typically the less grievances they're causing the populace. So it would help us return to constitutionally limited government. So yes, I support term limits wholeheartedly, and will do whatever I can to advance that initiative as a member of Congress. Thank you.
As your congressman, I will fight to pass term limits. Term limits is a necessary step to end the corruption and careerism in Washington, D.C. You see, I believe the biggest threat facing our nation today are these lifetime professional politicians who care more about themselves and the future of their career than the American people and the future of our country. And we are tired of it. That's why I made a personal pledge to only serve 3 terms in the House of Representatives, which equals 6 years, because I'm not interested in a career in Washington, nor do I care about money or power. I just simply care about standing up for our conservative values, standing up for the Hoosier people, and simply doing what's right every single time. Now, on top of that, I've also made a personal pledge that I will